hang on a second.
Members of Congress that come up here, and maybe if they walk you through it, I know I said this,
What?
some of the ladies raised their feeling.
No, John. Check that. John, check that. Does this sound good? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. John, whatever you change, don't change it. Look to him in the back. Look to him in the back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a mic test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a mic test. This is a mic test. It's probably a little crackle right now, but please don't worry about that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's an audio check. Don't explain it to anybody. Does the audio sound good? Hey, Kevin. Shoot, I'm friends with Molly now. She has all these cool pictures of you. Hey, really, I got to get back on my camera. Is the audio good? Somebody's got to give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Thumbs live. We're doing it the way I... All right, we got sneaky audio. Sneaky.
Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Mic check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4. John, are we good on this? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
Way to go, Logan. I'm so sorry. It was after I got on camera, so I knew what color it was. Just in case you said your business. Oh my God. Oh no. I'm not playing games. I don't.
Here, do you want to come up over here? I'll come down here.
It's so nice to be so early.
Okay. Yeah, we'll hang out.
No, it's a start.
Wow, this is great.
5 minutes ago, so we're good to start.
I don't. Yeah. Welcome, everybody. Where is she? No, we're waiting. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I'm Diana DeGette, co-chair of the Pro-Choice Caucus, along with Congresswoman Slaughter. And we're going to start out this morning with Senator Murray, who's been a huge champion for this bill and everything we're doing. Senator? Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I am just delighted to be here with the House Pro-Choice Caucus, and thank you for inviting me to be here to the other side of the Capitol to speak on such a critical issue. I'm running today but I wanted to be able to come over here quickly and just ask a simple question to our friends on the other side of the aisle. And what I'd like to know from Republicans in Congress is, who should be in charge of a woman's health care decision? Should it be the woman making those decisions with her partner and her doctor and her faith? Or should it be her boss making those decisions for her based on his religious beliefs? To me, and the vast majority of people across the country, the answer is obvious. Women should call the shots when it comes to their health care decisions, not their bosses, not the government, not the Supreme Court, period. We are here today because 5 men on the Supreme Court disagree with us. 5 men on the Supreme Court decided there should be a group of women across America who are required to ask their boss for permission to access basic health care. So we are here today because we cannot allow that to stand. That's why we have introduced the Not My Boss's Business Act to ensure that no CEO or corporation can come between you and your health care. Today, over 100 groups have now endorsed this bill, and we have 43 co-sponsors in the Senate. And I couldn't be more energized seeing this great coalition of colleagues and advocates ready to roll up their sleeves and go to work. So I want to thank Leader Pelosi and the House Pro-Choice Caucus for working on this common sense bicameral legislation with Senator Udall and me. And I really hope that our Republican colleagues on both sides of the Capitol join us. And for those of them who don't, For those Republicans who've already said they oppose our legislation, I am very interested in hearing their answer to that question that I posed. Women across the country and men are watching. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
I'm Louise Slaughter from the 25th Congressional District of New York, and I really want to get right down to it here. I want to give a couple of statistics that I think every American should know. The first one is 99% of the American women have used contraceptives sometimes in their life. And those women using contraceptions, 58% of them are doing it for medical reasons, for conditions that they have for which that is the best medicine. Those 58% were thrown under the bus with all the rest of the women in the country with the Supreme Court decision. That was 5 men who will never have to worry about ovarian cancer, ovarian cysts, bleeding of the uterus, any other kind of medical problem which women are confronted with. Probably never even knew they existed. I remember when we were first setting up the Office of Women's Health, I am confident that when I said breasts and ovaries in a committee room of the House of Representatives, that those 2 words had never been heard here before. Sometimes I think we're going back into that era, too. But we're not going to go. As we made it clear the other day, we are not about to go. Now, and very shortly, the House in session, we will be doing a procedural vote. It's kind of esoteric, but it's called the previous question. And what that will do, we're going to put our bill up that we have sponsored, the 3 of us in the House, and as well as all my colleagues here. We're going to put this bill up for question, asking the Speaker to bring it up for a vote right away. We want to act concurrently with the Senate and get this taken care of because women in this country do not know what is going to happen with them in the future as far as reproductive rights. Now, once we get that vote, we will know where everybody who votes today in the House of Representatives stands on this issue. And then it's going to be our responsibility to make sure that the women in all of their districts know where they stand and whose side they are on. Now, we're already getting some very strange commentary. I don't know if you heard what Senator McConnell, my fellow Kentuckian, said this morning. He thinks that we should, let me quote it. I want to do it absolutely correctly here. They're putting out some legislation today, and it's going to say that no employer can block an employee from legal access to FDA-approved contraceptives. Senator, that's the law right now. We can get it if our doctor prescribes it for us. So you're not doing a thing for women. And he said that the health care bill has been particularly hard for women. Well, I don't think you would hear that from the women who lived in those 8 states in the District of Columbia, that prior to the ACA, domestic violence was considered a pre-existing condition. So that's what their answer is going to be. We're going to say you can go ahead and do what you've been doing all these years, basically since Griswold versus Connecticut. Not good enough. What we need is for all those women who use contraceptive, including the 58% who need to buy it, to be covered by insurance as was decided by the Institute of Medicine when we put the ACA bill together. It was not a group of Congress people that decided that. It was the medical experts who said this is the thing to do. And let me point out one more time, because it needs to be said, I've been working on this for 40 years. Every time we think we've got it done, it comes back up again. It's like whack-a-mole. But here we are. We are at the position now where we will not be going back to that awful place where we came from, where women had no choices. But we will not let the 5 men of this audacious court decide whether or not we are going to be able to get contraception, and we want it to be deductible as Viagra has been since its first inception. Now, I don't have any reason to believe that the 3 women on the Supreme Court would have said take away Viagra's exception. Do you? Now, maybe we're smarter than the men are, but certainly I think the fact that we were at the mercy of those 5 men who may have been voting their own religious preferences, we don't know, but perhaps. But the idea that a corporation, a boss, could say to you what you are able to have under your health care plan is absolutely ridiculous. I sometimes wish we'd just simply gone to single payer, got it all taken care of and had out, but I think we'll get there. But anyway, thank you all for being here this morning. It is very encouraging to those of us who talk to each other all the time about what we're going to try to do to make this better. Now I'd like to introduce my dear colleague, the minority leader. Where? Nancy, I'm sorry, I didn't see you coming. Can I say that in all the years that I've been working on this, because I'm so much older than she, but nobody has worked harder on this issue for women economically, for women having the right of the reproductive rights. Remember that everything we fought for women to be able to achieve was basically made possible by the fact that women had the ability to space their families and decide what they were going to be doing with their own reproductive systems. Before that, and I was living before that, I remember the days when women could not get mortgages, couldn't get bank loans without their husband's signature. If they weren't married, they were out of luck. But now I keep going on. Excuse me, Madam Leader. Nancy Pelosi, the best leader the Congress has ever had.
Thank you, Louise Slaughter. She brings so much experience, such institutional memory, such enthusiasm for this issue, and she has been working on it for decades. I join her in saying and thanking you all for being here. I'm especially pleased that so many very young women and men are here today because this is you are the group that we have to reach out to understand what is at stake here. I thank Senator Murray. I chatted with her in the hall. She was leaving. I was coming. She said, I'm going over to get votes for this. I commend her for her ongoing, steady, and constant and effective leadership on this subject. Congresswoman DeGette and Congresswoman Slaughter as leaders of our pro-choice caucus, and Congressman Nadler on the Judiciary Committee. I'm pleased that we're joined by Congresswoman Grisham, who is here, and he left, but no, but who was right there? Mike Quigley. Mike Quigley from Illinois, and of course Jan Schakowsky, who has been active in so many arenas, and certainly in this one as well. And Elise Hogue, thank you for your leadership of NARAL, Pro-Choice America. This has probably been said, but let me just briefly associate myself with some of what has been said already. First and fundamentally, this is a women's health issue. Issues like contraception and family planning choices are not just about family planning. They're about the health of women. Louise Slaughter probably said before I came in that many women take these medications for their health, in addition to spacing their family. And some of them take them beyond their childbearing years because it has something to do with things that we won't go into right here, but clearly the 5 guys on the Supreme Court had no idea about. No idea about. So it's really as personal as it gets. I wish they could have had a conversation with their mother, with their wives, with their daughters, with their sisters, with anybody else who had any knowledge of the ramifications of public policy on the personal lives of women. I wish they had a feel for the respect that Congresswoman Schakowsky always talks about. This is about respect for women and their judgment. And so when they decided in the Hobby Lobby case, what they did, it was a gross assault on workers' rights, women's health, and respect for women, singling out women's health for discrimination. Women's health, not just family planning, women's health. For-profit corporations must not be allowed to pick and choose, you've heard that today, which laws to obey or which essential health care services to ensure. Although they restricted their ruling to closely held companies, this ruling affects millions of women across our country. Over 90% of America's businesses are closely held, including such large employers as the Coke Industries. Women should not be forced to jump through extra hoops to secure the fundamental health care they need, in addition to the family planning. Health care decisions, as we know, should be made by women in consultation with her faith, her family, her doctor, not politicians in Washington, not the insurer, and not certainly by her boss. The legislation that Senator Murray and my colleagues gathered here today introduced will ensure that no employer, man or woman, can be denied, no employee, man or woman, can be denied access to critical health services because of an employer's belief. This just opens the door to so much more. Congress should act immediately, pass this legislation, restore the rights of workers not to have their health care limited by their boss's beliefs. No employer should have the right to limit health choices of its employees, male or female. It's not the boss's business. All right? It's not the boss's business. I'm now pleased to yield the floor to the distinguished member of the Judiciary Committee, Congressman Nadler of New York.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Leader. What the Supreme Court did was a travesty. 21 years ago, I was one of the chief sponsors of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And we wrote that act to protect people's individual religious beliefs from being imposed upon. We wrote that bill to be a shield to protect your personal religious beliefs, not a sword to enable you to impose your religious beliefs on someone else. If anyone had told us the perversion of that bill that the Supreme Court would do to use that law to say that corporations, first of all, are people who have religious practices, that's perversion number one. Perversion number two, that the employer has the right to dictate to his employees, in effect, what kind of contraception or whether contraception they can use or they can be paid for by their insurance based on his religious beliefs, we would have said that is turning the law on its head. No matter how sincerely held a religious belief might be, for-profit employers like Hobby Lobby and Conestoga Wood should not be allowed to wield their beliefs as a means of denying employees access to critical preventive health care services. So we're introducing this bill, the Not My Boss's Business bill, to say that notwithstanding any misinterpretation of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, and it was a misinterpretation, it's none of your boss's business. Women have the right and must have the right to follow their own consciences and their own guidance, their own brain's guidance, their doctor's guidance, whoever they choose to listen to, or themselves, to make those choices for themselves. It's not for an employer. It's not for a boss. That's all this bill does. It is a simple bill, and it ought to be enacted quickly. And to anyone who opposes it, most of our Republican colleagues apparently, the question is, do you really believe, are you willing to go to all the men and women of America, especially the women of America, and say your choices are going to be made by the head of the corporation you work for? And that's because we say so. I don't think people can abide that, and I don't think this country will stand for that. And women's freedom for reproductive choices must be too well established to let them get away with that. Thank you.
I'm Elise Hogue. I'm the president of NARAL Pro-Choice America, and I'm going to be brief. I stood on the steps of the Supreme Court when this decision was handed down, when 5 male justices ruled that discrimination against women is not actually discrimination at all. And I heard the outrage from young people, from mothers, from fathers, from members of the clergy. It was a deafening chorus that has only grown louder as the days go on. That day, we called on Congress to right this wrong. And the leaders who I stand up with today, as well as their counterparts in the Senate, heard that call. The Not My Boss's Business Act stands for basic American values. It enshrines into law equality and health care for women, 99% of whom use contraception at some point in our lives. It enshrines into law the idea of just compensation. There's nothing free about our health care. We pay with our labor. Our insurance is part of our compensation. The Supreme Court is taking money out of our pockets and determining how we spend our paycheck. This law would change that. It enshrines into law the great American principle of autonomy and personal decision-making. And I will tell you, if there's one thing most Americans agree on, it's that we know better how to take care of ourselves, how to plan our families, than politicians who don't know what our lives are like. And I'll tell you, if there's one thing Americans agree upon more than that, it's that if these politicians don't know, our bosses definitely don't know. So I am here today to deliver a message. 40,000 of our members have taken action in support of this bill, and that's just a fraction of what you see from the entire movement, many of whom's leaders stand behind me. I'm proud to stand alongside them and represent this movement. Enough fooling around with our lives. We will not ask permission. We will not act as though it's acceptable that there is something shameful about us living our lives. What's good for the gander is good for the goose. What's good for Viagra is good for the IUD. We look at those 5 justices and we see the past. We look around this room with the young people and the diversity and the leadership, and this is the future. What the Supreme Court has done has awakened the pro-choice majority in this country. These leaders who have our backs have the wind at their backs. The only question left is which of their colleagues will stand on the right side of history with them, and we will be there to make sure that they do. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Elise. Thank you so much. I want to introduce Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who has also come in. The others were introduced before. 2 weeks ago, when the Supreme Court issued the Hobby Lobby decision, we announced a bicameral effort, our Not Your Boss's Business bill, to address this wrong decision. And today, we're here to announce, number one, in 2 days last week, we obtained almost 150 co-sponsors of the legislation in the U.S. House. Tomorrow, as you heard, the Senate will be taking a vote on bringing this important piece of legislation up, and we want to urge our colleagues on the other side of the Capitol to take it up with all due speed so that the rights of women to all health care are protected. Also this week, today and other days this week, we will be taking a series of procedural votes on the House floor in which we will be demanding the House leadership to take this legislation up before we leave for the August recess. So I'm asking every single person who's watching this press conference to call their member of Congress to ask them to co-sponsor our Not Your Boss's Business bill and to demand that the Republican leadership in the House bring it up. It's too important for the women of America. 2 weeks ago, the Supreme Court said Congress can fix this, and that's what we're trying to do. Last weekend, when I was home in Denver, Colorado, I talked to some young women, and I told them about this court decision where the U.S. 5 male justices on the Supreme Court actually said to the families of America, if you work for a corporation, the people who own that corporation have the right to tell you whether you can get insurance that covers your birth control. I had to say this about 2 or 3 times to these young women because they couldn't believe that in the year 2014 that your boss could actually tell you if you could get birth control or not. And Louise, I never disagree with Louise Slaughter. It's dangerous for one. But I do have to disagree in just a little bit, which is for the 58% of women who use birth control for reasons other than family planning, 100%, including those folks, are using family planning for health.
Yes.
Because whether it's pregnancy prevention, whether it's pregnancy prevention or treatment for some other kinds of health, a woman and her family need to be deciding what birth control they need to get. And that's all this bill does. So all of us are standing here together to urge the Senate to adopt this bill post haste and to urge the Republican leadership in the House to bring it up. I have been tasked with the wonderful job of announcing to everybody some of the advocacy groups who are here today. And all of the groups who are here today will be fanning out across the country. And what the other speakers said, I want to reiterate it, is every single young woman who's here and what we like to call the honorary women, the men who care about these issues, everybody here has to go out across the country and let the women and men and families of America know about this crazy decision. And so here's who's here to help us do that. You saw, of course, our wonderful leader from NARAL, Elise. Also, we have folks from Planned Parenthood, from the AAUW, from the ACLU, Advocates for Youth, American Congress of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, Catholics for Choice, Center for Reproductive Rights, Guttmacher Institute, Jewish Women International, National Abortion Federation, National Council of Jewish Women, National Family Planning and Reproductive Health Association, National Health Law Program, Physicians for Reproductive Health, Population Institute, Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice, Reproductive Health Technologies Project, Unitarian Universalist Association, Unite for Reproductive and Gender Equity, the Women's Law Center, and several organizations. I think that's a pretty good coalition, don't you? So let's all go out there and fight, and let's get this passed to protect the health of women. Thank you very much.
Thank you for everything. Thank you. Thank you so much.